This means that I don't feel pain like you do. In fact, I've never been in pain, and I have no idea what it feels like. This is an extremely rare hereditary disease. My great-grandpa had it, and it skipped a few generations before it was passed down to me. I know you're probably thinking that feeling no pain sounds great, but I can assure you that it isn't as good as it sounds. We are meant to feel pain for a reason. It's there to warn us when something is wrong, whether it be a toothache, a fever, or when a substance is too hot. I've never been able to run a bath by myself. My mom has to run it for me and check the temperature. It also means that when I'm in the bath, I can't refill it with hot water in case I burn myself. I can feel hot and cold, but I have no idea what a burn feels like, or what being so cold your toes hurt feels like. I also have to cut up my food and let it cool down for 5 minutes before I eat it, so I don't burn my mouth. I don't even bother with hot drinks. I just stick to drinking juice. I watch my friends with curiosity when they accidentally hurt themselves. I just find their in-pain expressions so odd. My mom shut her finger in the trunk of the car and screamed before she walked off, shaking her hand for at least 10 minutes. If I shut my finger in the trunk, I wouldn't even flinch, which is bad because it means I could cause myself more of an injury. My great-grandpa, the one who also had CIP, died at the age of 40 from heart disease. He didn't have any symptoms because of his CIP, so he had no warning signs that he was seriously ill. My parents are terrified that I will end up ill too and not realize it. They make me go to the doctors for a monthly checkup. There is no definite cure for CIP, although there are some experimental treatments out there. My parents have refused these, as they don't want me to end up feeling like a lab rat. They say it's up to me to decide if I want to try any when I reach 18. I have scars on my arm from when I was in a restaurant and spilt a boiling mug of tea on it, but because I didn't feel pain, I didn't flinch or put it under cold water. I once fell off a climbing frame and twisted my ankle, but continued to walk on it for the rest of the day. That evening, my mom saw my ankle was swollen and took me to the hospital. Turns out I'd badly sprained it and caused myself more injury by walking around on it all day. I was on crutches for weeks. I'm not allowed to take part in any sports for fear of hurting myself, and I don't use the cooker or the kettle. My mom has to tell me if I need to put sun lotion on or to wear a jacket. If it's really sunny, my mom doesn't let me go out at midday as she's worried I'll end up badly sunburned. Even though I wasn't meant to play sports, once at lunchtime, I joined in with my friends and played basketball. A boy tried to take the ball off me, and I was shoved hard onto the ground. He was staring at me open-mouthed, and some of the other kids were gasping at me. I looked down at my arm. It had popped out of its socket and was hanging there limp. I hadn't even realized. The boy walked with me to the nurse's room, and I sat down on the metal frame bed all smiles. At least, that was until my body went into meltdown and I fainted. I woke up 3 hours later in hospital with my arm in a bandage. Needless to say, my parents were furious with me. When I was younger, some kids used to poke and hit me to see if I would flinch. I used to be covered in marks and bruises, and my parents were horrified. They complained to my teacher, who gave the entire school a lecture about the dangers of my condition and how their actions could have put me in hospital. Now that I'm older, I find that most kids try and steer well away from me in fear of accidentally harming me, especially since the arm popping incident. It makes me feel sad, but there's nothing I can do about it. My friend Kayla says I'm like a real-life superhero. I don't think I have a very good power at all. I'd much rather be able to have super speed or turn invisible. I do worry about my future. I hope I don't end up ill and not realize it like my great-grandpa. My condition makes my life difficult at times, but I'm not going to let it get in my way. I may not be a superhero, but I am me, and I will try my best to protect myself from injuries and have a normal life. I know it might sound like a boy's name, but I'm actually a girl. It all started with my brother Harry back before I was even born. Sadly, he died in a car accident at the age of 3. Then, 2 years after the accident, my mom fell pregnant with me. Both of my parents longed to have a little boy to fill the gap that Harry had left them with. So, when I was born a girl, I imagine my parents must have been distraught. They christened me George Harry Hastings. Thinking back on it now, I always had boys' toys like action figures and water pistols. My parents never put me in pretty dresses or skirts. In fact, in all the pictures of me as a little kid, I'm in Harry's old clothes. They also cut my hair short, like a boy's. I guess friends and family found my parents' behavior odd, as before I turned 2, we moved far away from everyone. I was homeschooled during preschool and primary school. My house was my whole world. I had pirate-themed wallpaper, even though I much preferred mermaids. At that point, I really thought I was a boy and not even confused about gender differences. Sometimes, the neighbor's son would come around for playdates. When I showed him my pirate ship collection, he told me that his little sister had a baby doll collection and she was so obsessed with it. He told me about all the doll's accessories, all the clothes that would be changed every 15 minutes, all the hairstyles that might take hours to be done. He thought girls were gross, but I was like hypnotized hearing about that. I loved everything she did more than any boring pirate ship that I got. But when I told my parents, my mom instantly got upset. My dad got seriously angry and told me that boys would never be allowed to play with stuff like that. From then on, whenever that boy came around, I had to try my best to act like I thought boys should, and told him I thought girls were gross. Mom overheard me telling him that girls stank. She gave me the biggest smile. I was pleased that I made her happy. One time, this boy and I were floating pirate ships in the bathtub when he said he needed to pee. The toilet was right beside the bathtub, so I could see him. Well, I didn't want to. It was just something out of the corner of my eye that made me notice. The way he did it was so weird. He didn't sit down, but he pulled something out of his pants. I was so confused, so I asked my dad. That was when I found out the truth. He sat me down and said, "That's how boys actually do it in that situation. You and him are different. Yes, you're a girl, so don't ever share a bathroom with anyone." He then explained that my mom found it hard to deal with my brother's death, especially as when I was born, I reminded them of Harry. So I'm basically living in the shadow of my dead brother to please their feelings. When I was 12, my parents had no choice but to send me to middle school as they didn't approve the homeschool application. The morning of my first day at school, Dad dropped me off. Before I stepped out of the car, he said, "You can't tell anyone you're a girl. Or else." I was already terrified about pretending to be a boy in front of all my new classmates without having Dad threaten me too. "I won't," I told him. "Good, George," he sighed. "Your mom needs this. She wouldn't cope with losing her son again." On my first day at school, I had no idea how my parents could fake this, but no one knew I was really a girl. Even my teacher called me her boy and gave me male school uniforms. I made friends with a boy named Darren, and it wasn't long before we became pretty much inseparable. Being around him made me feel like a boy. Yeah, at times it was tricky, especially in the restrooms and changing rooms. I obviously couldn't use the urinals, and I always got changed in a cubicle so I didn't have to undress in front of the other boys. I made up some excuse that I had a skin condition and didn't want the other kids to see it. None of the other kids ever said anything bad about this, as they knew Darren would get mad at them. My skin condition excuse got me out of swimming, too. Thankfully. The years passed, and the lie became harder to keep. My breasts began to develop, and although I'm a small-built girl, they became noticeable. I had to wrap bandages around my chest to hide them. It could cause restricted breathing sometimes, so my dad told my teacher that I had heart disease and couldn't attend any physical activity at school, which made me even sadder. Now, at 13, I know I can't do this anymore. I still continued to live the lie, but each day was harder than the last. I decided that I was going to tell my parents how I felt. But then I walked into the kitchen to find Mom looking through old photo albums of Harry. "Oh, hello, Harry. You looked lovely in this picture." She held up a picture of him surrounded by toys. "Mom, I'm not Harry. I'm George, remember?" No, you're my beautiful Harry." She hugged me tightly and began to stroke my hair. Dad walked in, and Mom continued calling me Harry and telling Dad how handsome I was. Dad looked worried. He gently pried her off me and led her upstairs.
Dad told me that I needed to do a better job of being a boy, else Mom would be so distraught that the shock would kill her. I don't think Mom's very well, and she hasn't been for a long time. All I ever wanted to do was make her happy, but pretending to be a boy when I'm a girl is making me miserable. Even worse, the more time I spend with Darren, the more I realize that I have the biggest crush on him. I think about him all the time, and I daydream about what it'd be like if he saw me as a girl and we were a proper couple. I really need your help, as I don't know what to do. I know I can't carry on like this for much longer, but I don't want my parents to hate me. Should I continue with the lie to please my parents, or should I break their hearts and confess to them that I can't keep up the lie anymore, and that I want everyone to know that I'm actually a girl